rise above the static, dissecting issues diplomatic. With mics in hand, they brave the storm of clashing views and norms transform. The Pundits Podcast, bold and true, shining lights on red and blue. Through heated takes and reasoned thought, they seek the truth that can't be bought. From climate change to foreign ties, they pause the spinning and sift the lies. No stone unturned, no topic taboo, as left and right come into view.
Hey everybody, this is Razib with Josiah Neely of The Conversation. You know what? We're gonna have you introduce us at some point. But then it might have to be the Neely versation, which doesn't work as well.
It doesn't work. By the way, and you know, you're really great at doing the intros, and then you launch right into whatever the topic was. Last time you were wearing like a nice white jacket, and I wanted, when you were doing the intro, I was like going to compliment you on it, and then we moved on, and I never got back to it. So I
want to do that white jacket. So I got the white jacket for a Miami Vice party last spring, and I still have it along with like white like slacks, and so I'm just like, I gotta get those. I gotta send them to dry cleaner because like the issue with the white jacket is every little thing shows up.
Oh yeah, that's a problem. I had a great white jacket when I was in law school, and then I took it. It was like Halloween or whatever, and so I was wearing it, and we were at like this local dive bar where just like the floor was completely dirty with like sludge, mud, melted snow or whatever. And this classmate of mine, this friend of mine, I don't know, he was just like super drunk, and he just came over, grabbed the jacket and threw it on the ground for no reason. And so it like the stains never came out, so it was ruined. So you got to be careful, where you take that sort of thing. It's a purity.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, what I noticed is I always just like, I basically kept just like I'm always checking. I'm always vigilant,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm wearing the white jacket. It's like you can never relax. But I recommend as you know, I got another jacket. Ooh, like I knocked my mic. The people on the video will see that. But I got another jacket, just kind of like tech guy type jacket that I got in SF. And so, I'm just trying to, be a little bit more grown up with my sartorial tendencies. And yeah. So, and also like Austin has pretty good weather outside of the summer to wear jackets,
right?
Because it's warm or it's like kind of cool, but not like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like it's a good like all around weather for that sort of thing. So there's no excuse. So I figure, just do that. But in darker news, actually, you know what? Like, I still think we need more reviews. I think like we deserve more reviews. And so we should just encourage our listeners. We're getting some growth, but actually over the last couple of months, I'm just to be honest, like it's leveled off through Substack. I don't know why. So if anyone has ideas, maybe we should like have like big guests, or maybe we should guest on other podcasts. Actually, you know what? I am going to be because this podcast will be out by then. I'm going to be on The Remnant. Jonah Goldberg's podcast, The Remnant, and I am going to promote Conversation. Okay, this is just like I'm going to promote Conversation just on The Remnant. So because we're going to have overlap with The Remnant, political stuff, right? So political overlap with The Remnant. So anyway, we want to talk about something a little darker, I guess. Like, should we just get into it?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, why don't you go, Josiah? Like, talk about it, the death and darkness.
Yeah, so a couple days ago there was this CEO of United Healthcare, the insurance company, and I guess that maybe they're also a provider. I don't know. But anyway, he's known for being like an insurance CEO, and so he's just like I guess he was going to like a sales call or some meeting, something related to his official duties in Manhattan, and some guy just was, lying in wait for him and stepped out and like shot him with a silencer, drove off on a city bike, still at large. I don't know. It seems like they will probably catch him. It was a weird, I don't know if you've seen the video. There's like, I guess, security camera footage or whatever. And we don't know who this guy is yet, but it was a weird video in the sense that like, this is a guy.
Wait. Are you presuming gender?
Yes, I am. I am presuming gender for multiple reasons, but yeah. So this is this guy, he clearly seemed to know what he was doing in a different, a number of sorts of ways, right? So it's not like a lot of people that get shot, and like, could it be a mugging? Could it be this or that? Or even if it's just some disgruntled guy, this is like there's no flinching of like shooting the guy in the back. He had, all sorts of like, potentially specially modified weapons or whatever. So he, I don't know. We'll find out if they catch him who he is, if he's like a professional, if he's just like ex-military or what. But that's not, the main, like, that's not the main reason that I wanted to talk about this necessarily, because, it's a tragic thing for him or whatnot, and what does it mean? But I think the biggest thing that bothered me about it was just some of the reactions you see online. Taylor Lorenz in particular seemed to like be very deranged about it, was like posting, celebratory memes, and then was like saying, we want like health insurance CEOs to die, and then was like posting pictures and names of other health insurance CEOs. And okay, like that's an extreme example, but other people were doing similar sort of stuff. Even people I know in real life, like one mutual of ours, I can think of, for example, who on Facebook was like posting some like, memes about how they didn't care that this guy died or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, it's just like, it makes me feel like bad. It makes me feel like maybe the internet was a mistake in a way. If this is like how people use it or react to it or whatnot. I mean, there's some people, if it's just like some random leftist guy, like there's some people who I just don't expect anything better from, like, okay, these are kind of lousy people and they use their progressive politics to justify, being shitty people, right? In different sorts of ways. Okay. But I think there's also an element of, there's something about the internet that seems to just kind of like make people meaner or more disassociated with like these sorts of tragedies, where they feel like it's just like kind of, okay, like you just fall into that attitude for all sorts of different reasons that don't make a lot of sense.
Sure. Well, let me a lot of societies have professions or occupations that are considered ritually impure, like executioners.
Right.
In a lot of societies, people that work with dead animals, like tanners, are often ritually like the Baruka men, the Eta in Japan, worked with dead animals like tanners and stuff like that, leather workers,
Yeah.
Obviously this is a big issue in actually in Europe itself. It was also kind of an issue because like they smell. It's a smelly area of town. Leather workers smell. In the Indian subcontinent also, that's a Dalit, it's a low caste. And also like there's groups that like clean feces and stuff. They smell. They're considered impure. Okay, whatever. But also you need an executioner. You need executioners. Even if executioners are considered ritually unclean, because like, I mean, what they do is they kill people for a living. That's just kind of weird,
Right.
Not weird, but it's just kind of, someone's got to do it. But like,
Right.
Do you really want your son-in-law to be an executioner? I don't know. So, okay. I'm bringing this up because in a way, insurance, health insurance, everyone knows that health insurance is necessary, or at least the way the system is set up. And like, even if it's universal so different countries have different types of systems. So you have single payer, which Canada has, which means that the government pays for everything, and Canada has a really extreme system where they, I think, pretty much ban private healthcare.
Right.
The UK has a different system where it is not totally single payer insofar as like there's an NHS, but that's socialized healthcare where the government actually employs the doctors.
Right.
And then there's a separate private system for if you want to pay for it. Okay. And then in most of the continental countries, I think you have a different system where it's like there are private, like Germany, I think has private healthcare, but it's a very regulated market and it's universal. And there's subsidies and all these other things, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a total universal system, although it's close. Right now, after Obamacare, like you can buy, but you don't need to, and there's no real penalty. There used to be a penalty, whatever.
Right.
With health insurance in America, there's always the issue where they will deny claims to people that are sympathetic.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. And in other countries, like in Canada, you will just die before you can see a specialist. So scarcity is a fact of life.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they deny every health system denies people's coverage for certain things.
Death panels always exist in some way.
Right. I mean, and like it's just unavoidable because you have finite resources and like disputes about efficacy of different treatments and this and that. So I don't know. Like I'm sure there are cases in our system, where denials are unjustified or other stuff. Look, I've had disputes with insurance companies, right? And I've never wished death on anybody, but they can be very aggravating. And like occasionally when I get off the phone with someone or something happens, I have briefly wished Bernie on them, which maybe is a fate worse than death in a sense, right? So I get like people being aggravated, but it is like a necessary part of the, like someone's going to have to deny somebody something somewhere. And I looked it up, like the profit margin for this United, it's like 4%, right? It's 4%.
Yeah, it's not profitable yet.
So it's not like just eliminating the profits from the company or whatever would solve the issue. And like there's other complicated arguments about like it's like someone online I saw was saying, well, under the ACA, there's a rule that 80% of premiums have to go to paying claims. So because of that, you can't, like, an insurance company can't actually increase their profits by denying claims in the same way that you might think, because they've got to spend 80% of it on claims. So actually the way for them to make more profits is to increase that 80%, right? Because like they can get it on the rest. So but then other people were saying, well, that's not totally true, this or that, blah. I don't know. It gets complicated. Like health insurance stuff is complicated, but it does feel to me like, I mean, some of it, I guess, is maybe like based on misunderstandings, how the system work or whatever. You want to have like someone to blame for whatever the bad stuff that exists in the system. But I also feel like some of it is just, people are looking like for an excuse to be nasty to people, right? And then this is like a way to moralize that, because you have some like argument about how if we had, Bernie care or whatnot, then people would not be doing
Okay, but in people's defense, or like just an explanation, I guess, insurance is insurance. People are rejected for various claims for, say, like let's say your house burns down and you don't get like whatever as much as you think. You're going to be pretty pissed about that. I get it. I think the problem with health insurance is at some point in your life, you're going to have a loved one and they're going to have to say no in terms of, okay, like they have, I don't know, like triple negative breast cancer. None of these like really weird chemos or techniques or treatments have shown any efficacy. basically like, no, you could pay for it out of pocket, but if there's no efficacy, we're not going to pay for it, which, obviously then palliative care is the likely option.
Yeah.
What people are going to think, not everybody, but some people are going to think they could have lived if it wasn't for the denial of that treatment.
Right.
So because you can't defend yourself against the counterfactual. And so like the psychological state of a lot of people is they do believe that they know cases in their life where insurance companies are responsible for the death of that loved one as a proximate cause.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that that's the issue that's motivating, or they've heard stories. Sometimes the stories get bigger in the telling.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are. I mean, like, is Taylor Lorenz know people that has happened to? Maybe.
No, Taylor Lorenz is a separate case. She's a sociopath.
Right. Yeah. Okay, but like some people, yeah,
she's raw dogging other crazy. She's raw dogging other crazy.
Right. I mean, yes, I'm sure that there are some people who feel like had people that happened to, and they feel like it could. But my sense from reading people or whatever is a lot of it is abstract. It's not that they have any personal experience of it. It's just that they have in their mind, oh yeah, like insurance companies are constantly denying people claims, and that's why they're dying. And like it's a big country. I'm sure that happens. Like under any system, like there's going to be something like that happens. But yeah,
no, I agree. I agree. Okay, I agree with you on the. I agree with you descriptively. I'm just trying to say that, like, for the regular person, their interaction with insurance companies,
it's very unpleasant.
It's like not good. It's negative because like they don't think about the reimbursement when it goes smoothly.
Right.
It's magic, right? They think about it when they got a call, dispute the claim. Okay.
Yeah.
They think about it when they see their premiums growing every month. Their premiums are growing because other people are demanding extraordinary treatments.
Yeah,
like
right.
This is the issue.
But they're mad both that claims are being denied or that coverage isn't extended, and also that the premiums are going up. So
part of the issue is like insurance as an industry, like as like a lot of listeners probably know, like the health insurance is like a way to get around wage controls during World War II, but it confuses a lot of people's intuitions because we're not paying the cost that we see.
Yeah.
So there's like these other intermediaries that are paying the cost and that are dealing with the same things that we would otherwise in terms of like our price preferences, like the price signal. They're trying to do it. But that's like we're not dealing with it. We think like we paid the insurance, we paid our premium, they should cover everything. That's what we're paying the premium for.
Yeah. Well, I did see some people on X, not regarding to this, but some other recent thing that were basically like, insurance is a scam because nothing happened to me. I think it was like auto insurance or whatever. It wasn't health insurance, but it's or like life insurance. And like, it's a scam because like I paid life insurance. I didn't die this year. They should give me the money back, like people just don't understand like insurance.
Actually, like, okay, our listeners are very sophisticated, but describe how insurance works, and you would know because like your think tank does a lot of work with insurance. What is insurance? Like, how does it work? Because a lot of people actually don't understand.
Sure. I mean, it's like I think it's just about it's a way to manage risk and uncertainty. So if you're like, I mean, if you take life insurance as an example, if you have a group of 100 people, and statistically, let's say that like 2 of them are going to die over the course of the next year, but no one knows who those are. The insurance company doesn't know. The people don't know. And like if a person were to die suddenly, that could result in all sorts of like financial hardship for their family or whatever. So you're basically kind of pooling the risk where everybody, let's say everybody pays $1,000 premium into the pot, and then whoever does die, if the 2 people die, they each get $50,000, right? That's a very simplified example because there's no overhead, there's no actuarial adjustment. So you do all sorts of things to try and make the system more efficient. But that's like basically the idea. It's the same thing with like all insurance is like that, right? Like you don't know, probably in all likelihood, your house is not going to burn down. But if it did burn down,
hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah. But if it did burn down and you didn't have insurance, like the cost, for unless you're Bill Gates or something, the cost to rebuild it, you would be screwed. So it makes sense for you to pay a little bit of money for each month to this company. And if they can spread, like if they can make that same calculation with a bunch of people, they have a idea. They don't know house is gonna burn down. They have a decent idea of how many houses are going to burn down, and so they can set the like rates for what they need in order to make that go. Health insurance, same thing. I mean, health insurance is maybe a little bit more screwed up because there are, I would say, a lot of things that get covered under health insurance that aren't really in this category. Like you don't know exactly when you're going to be sick, but there's certain medical expenses that you're going to have, right? And they are, yes, yeah, right. There's certain medical expenses that you're going to have, and the prices are manageable. So you could just save like a little bit of money or pay it off or whatever. The real big thing is a small number of people are going to have like a catastrophic amount of health expenses, or they will need a catastrophic amount of health expenses, in order to like prolong their life or quality of life. And so you don't know who that is. So like if there was no insurance, people would basically, I mean, they'd have to do one of two things. They would have to save a huge amount of money. And for most of them, they would just end up never needing it. And then some people would just not save enough, and they would be like totally wiped out, right? And they might die because of that. So insurance is sort of a way we don't have to do that. And okay, it causes its own problems. There's its own issues, but it's it's clearly like some form of insurance for healthcare. I think is clearly for catastrophic healthcare is clearly superior to the alternatives. Whether that insurance is provided, whether it's provided through the government and you call it government, insurance, or it's through a private system or whatever, you need some sort of risk pooling.
But the issue with this sort of insurance is it's not like if you don't want to buy car insurance, like don't buy a car. The issue with health insurance is, I mean, pretty much, at some point, legally, if there's an emergency, you take it to the emergency room, they're gonna take care of you. They're not gonna let you die in the street. So like we don't live in a libertarian world with healthcare. There's all sorts of regulations and rules, and the health insurance is highly regulated state by state. So there are certain states, I think California, where it's like fertility treatment has to be included. There's all sorts of like all these. So this is a very, very regulated industry that people interact with. Yeah.
But yeah, health insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I think like there are states that have like mandated whatever price caps for like flood insurance, and that just means that there's no insurance anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's regulation of like rates and claims, other, other stuff like that. But yeah, and health insurance, I mean, I've known, and I'm sure you've known too, there are a lot of people who like when they're young, and if you're young and you're healthy and you're in your 20s or whatever, you just go without insurance for a while, right?
Yeah.
Because you're taking a calculated risk that something bad is not going to happen to you that you won't be able to handle, and I don't even know if that's, I mean, people have to judge for themselves.
I feel like my personal experience in their 20s, 90% of the people that I know that have like gotten a benefit out of health insurance is because they did an extreme sport or something, or like had a bike crash, and that's what it is. 10% of the time, there's like weird things. Like I knew a guy in college who had testicular cancer when he was 22. It was good that he had insurance, you know? Obviously, it was a freak thing. It's a minority of cases that happens, but 90% of the time, it's because of an injury, and that's actually like due to your own lifestyle.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's an injury or whatever. And when you're, especially if you're like a single dude, you know, like you don't have any dependents, I think the calculation really changes for a lot of people when they get married and they have kids. One, I mean, they're just naturally getting older, so they, you know, the chance of them having some sort of health problem goes up. But then also, like, it's one thing to say, okay, look, I think I'm going to roll the dice. I think I'm healthy. I don't want to pay, you know, however much for health insurance, or my job doesn't have coverage, you know, and it's a pain. So I'll just do it. And it's another thing to do that, like if you have kids, right? I mean, I do know people who have done that with kids, right? And you can, like, there are different ways for you to like cut deals if you pay in cash or other things. Like there's certain doctors that only do that or whatever. So it's not totally impossible, but it's a much bigger thing, you know, when it's not just your own butt that's on the line, I guess you could say.
Well, so here's the funny thing. I remember talking to a guy. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. So, but his name is Jim Woodhill. He made his money in chips. I was talking to him like 2002 or 2003. So this was like a long time ago. And he was already like 70. So, but anyway, I was like, he had like some health issue that he was dealing with, minor, but not that. It was like not trivial. And I was asking him, oh, like I knew he was rich, so I was like, oh, like so do you like not even pay attention to insurance? And he's like, oh, I haven't had insurance since I became rich. And I was like, insurance is like one of those things where the super poor don't have insurance, and then like everybody else has insurance, and then you become rich and you don't need insurance again. You know?
So I don't know about that, but I do know a guy who's like a really rich guy who he bought some like coastal property, and he thought the insurance rates, like the flood insurance or whatever, was too high. So he's like, I'm just not going to get, you know, I'm not going to get that. And if I get wiped out, then I can just cover it, you know, because he like if you,
Well,
yeah.
Well, the analogy that I'm using is like, you know, like a lot of economists say like don't ever buy a warranty, you know, for like a lot of like a lot of like smaller ticket items. Like, so it's like if I buy something that's like $300, I don't buy a warranty because like I can replace it, you know. If I'm gonna buy like when it comes to a car, that's different.
Yeah. But I mean, when I rent a car, I don't get the insurance typically unless it's for work.
Yeah.
Work is paying.
Well, again, but that's because the price point is low enough that it's like, oh, okay, well,
Right.
I guess I'll like pay the, you know, yeah, that's basically what's going on. Oh, we've been talking about logistics too much. We're gonna talk about murder, mayhem, and like people being crazy. So one thing that I observed is Taylor Lorenz, and there's other people too. There's some guy who runs the Humanist Report, talking about how you know, he'd be okay with people like attacking the guy's family, estranged wife and kids, I guess. So people with names, like, you know, as we call it, face fags, you know, as Lomez, Jonathan Keeperman would say, are expressing murderous intent and justifying this assassination. This is one way where the left and the right are still not the same, because like you have to be like some frog Nazi, some anon to have anything equivalent. Like we could never say that, you know?
Hayward, yes, but yeah.
Okay, but what Charles Haywood said was like,
it was weird.
Really milquetoast. It was weird, but it was very milquetoast compared to what Taylor said.
Yes, I suppose that is true. Yes, the only striking thing about what Charles said is like at least the leftists they know specifically why it is that they, you know, what it is that they think this guy did wrong or whatever. And Charles Haywood, his tweet was like, I don't know anything about this guy or if he's done anything wrong, but I still think it's good because other bad people will be afraid. Weird.
Some must die so that many must know.
Yeah, right. I tell you what worries me is, you know, I mean, we talked about a little bit of this before in terms of like political violence with like the assassination attempts or whatever. And, you know, we are a country, like it's a big country we've got a lot of guns, we got a lot of crazy people, and like no one knew who this. I mean, no one knew who this this healthcare CEO guy was, except I guess the guy who killed him. But there are other rich people, right? Who a lot of people have like public beefs with. They think they don't like for various reasons, like Elon or whatever.
Yeah, but Elon is aware. He is paranoid about this.
Sure, yeah. And I know there have been like stuff with like his kids or with Grimes or whatever, like people attacking, his car or whatnot. But I mean, this is kind of like, it is kind of, it's not a good sign, I would say, right? For like where we're headed.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of virtuous aspects to our social norms that allow society to be run with a lot of overhead. So in places like Brazil and large parts of Latinx America, executives apparently do have like really intense security.
The memo that's out. They've dropped it. It's gone.
No, but I say it ironically. Am I gonna? I'm like it would be like if it was like 2010 and I kept saying Afro American, like the last guy. It's like, look, it's not 1979 anymore, but anyway,
you're going to be canceled for saying Latinx.
I mean, I've already been like close to like let's just say like let's just say like when Latinx people hear the word Latinx, their cultural disposition towards being spicy and angry comes out. I know this firsthand.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so what I was gonna say though is, there's a lot of overhead to have to deal with security, fear, lack of public trust. And I have heard from like one person that I know a little bit who does work in security, and they're like, yeah, they're getting a lot of calls.
Yeah.
From rich people. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, famously, so Julius Caesar was assassinated partly because the type of life he led was trying to show that he trusted the people. So he didn't like.
He had to worry about. Turns out it's.
Yeah, but he also like forgave. He kept pardoning his aristocratic enemies.
Right.
Because he was magnanimous.
Yeah.
And also Olaf Palme. I think Olaf Palme was his name, a Swedish prime minister. He was killed by a Kurdish militant, I think in the 1980s. And back then, Swedish prime ministers would just like walk around town like they were just normal people.
Right.
You see them at Starbucks just chilling, no security detail. And so obviously they had to change that after that. It's just like after 9/11, flying became a pain. Yeah. We're all dealing with that 25 years later, even though a lot of it is also just security theater. It's not even effective.
Yeah, most of it, I would say. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. That's maybe not such a great trend. Hopefully.
Well, also another thing is we need executioners. We need CEOs of companies, even if they provide a function that's socially reviled. We had this issue a couple of years ago where the woke people were like attacking lawyers that were defending, murderers or rapists. Well, I mean, if the murderers or rapists were white, let me be clear. No, it was always like people that they didn't like. What does it say about you? Like, do you like us?
Yeah.
Like basically, we got to get weird. We got to get weird. We got to stay weird.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. We got to.
Speaking of weird, I know this wasn't on the list. I guess maybe the Biden pardon is old news, so we don't need to talk about that. But that's like kind of a weird thing.
But what I did say is he's not weird. Like that people in the rest of the world are like, oh yeah, of course.
Right.
Whereas like some Americans and like Europeans are just like, well, what, the law is the law. Right. And the people in the rest of the world are like,
law, yeah.
They cray. That's why we have nice things that they don't.
Right.
It's a far better thing that I do, that I execute the law by the letter than give grace to my family.
Yeah, Garrett Jones, I think on X had like a picture of some must have been in New England. It was some colonial era monument to a judge who had like condemned and sentenced to death his own son for, you know, some crime or whatever. And they were like, yeah, that's right. That's what you should do.
Well, you know, to be honest, like this is not simply weird. I mean, it has existed forever in different circumstances. Stalin famously just like let them kill his own son when he was like.
That's
when
true,
he was,
but I mean, Stalin was kind of a dick. I think it's part of the like.
Okay, there was a Roman general who executed his own son for like some battlefield disobeying of orders. So I mean, you know, there is a custom, or like arguably Abraham is getting kind of weird. Abraham is getting kind of weird.
Yeah, I suppose you could even say that's like maybe there's something you know, I don't know, like biblical scholars or scholars about like the origin of morality or whatever. There's something in that about breaking free of, you know, amoral familism or whatnot. I mean, that's obviously a rich case in all sorts of different moral and theological aspects or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We need to talk too much about the Biden thing. I do feel like part of it, like if Hunter were, so on the one hand, if Hunter were on trial or had been convicted of like raping somebody, let's say, right? Or killing somebody, you know, or whatever, right? Then I think it would feel a little different than the actual case where it was like, well, he lied on some form to get a gun because he was doing drugs, and then he did also defraud the government of a bunch of tax money. Okay, so that's not good. But they are, you know, especially the gun thing, it's a little bit easier to see how you could say, like that. It's a little bit easier maybe to like cut Biden some slack for that. Now,
Wait, so I'm going to interrupt real quick. I do have to say one of the problems with our current system of laws is there's too many laws and everyone's breaking them constantly.
Right.
And so like prosecutorial discretion, it's just fucked up. But anyways, go on.
Yeah. I mean, so the counter argument of that, which I think is true, is okay, but Biden didn't just pardon his son for that gun thing. He gave him like a blanket pardon, which went back like years before those cases, basically to when he joined the Burisma board or whatever. And so it just seems like it's really about him trying to get him off the hook for other stuff that he hasn't even been charged with yet. Now, of course, they're talking about, the Biden administration, I guess, is talking about pardoning everybody. They want to pardon Fauci. They want to pardon, you know, Nancy Pelosi. They want to pardon Mark Milley, Jack Smith, you know, which does, I mean, you start to get into like, there's a bit of late Roman Republic vibes about all of this, I would say. I sort of feel, I mean, it is interesting, like for all the talk about Trump, you know, being a threat to democracy, flouting the rule of law, or whatever, it is the case that it was actually the Democrats who brought a bunch of, who indicted him 4 times. They put his campaign manager in prison. They put his second campaign manager in prison. They put, you know, a bunch of other people in prison or indicted them. And now at the end, they're like, well, we're going to pardon ourselves so he can't come after us. You know, like some of it, I think, is just got to be projection. You know, they're worried that he will take the same, that his DOJ will take the same attitude to them that they took to him already. You know, so that, I think that also could, I mean, it sets up a bad cycle. I think like the precedence is not great, but there's, you know, yeah.
Well, so I think the common thread, the common link between the United Healthcare assassination, the killing, I think we can say that this was probably ideological, not like some hitman for some like convoluted,
you know,
insider trading. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could, like, he is apparently being investigated. He was apparently being investigated for insider trading. and it could be all sorts of things, right? I don't think we totally know. The most. I think if you had to like guess, it's some disgruntled guy, whose wife died of cancer and they deny, or he's someone who's just like watching a bunch of YouTube videos and got radicalized or whatever. But it could be all sorts of stuff, and we won't. I think if we catch him, we'll get like probably a better idea of what it's about, but who knows?
Yeah. All right. We should probably move to our second topic.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, I don't know. We don't need to talk about that, I guess.
Wait, no, what? No, now you gotta. You can't do that.
I can't do that. Okay. Well, it's just Daniel Penny. This is like a New York true crime podcast or whatever. First we talk about the healthcare CEO being murdered. And now Daniel Penny, because he's on trial right now. They just apparently the jury was dead. So he's being charged. I think there's 2 charges against him regarding the death of Jordan Neely, which has been like a little weird for me, I have to say, because the guy's name is Neely and it begins with like a J-O. So there's like a lot. Neely is spelled differently, but a lot of people misspell my last name. So obviously I am not the real story here. I'm not the important part of it, but
But you always got to make it about yourself, Josiah.
Yeah, I got to make it about myself. Yeah, but anyway, so he's been on trial. The jury, I guess, was deadlocked. And the weird thing is, there's 2 charges. He's charged with manslaughter, and then there's a lesser charge of negligent homicide, right? And so it's like a lower standard of what you have to prove. And the jury came back and said, hey, we're deadlocked on the manslaughter charge, right? We can't, they don't like you can send notes out as the jury. So they sent a couple notes out, and it wasn't like they didn't say what the deadlock was, or what, but ultimately the prosecutors decided to dismiss the manslaughter charge, and they're just going to proceed next week. The jury is just going to consider the negligent homicide charge. And so this, which is kind of weird. Like, obviously the jury can send out whatever notes they want, I guess, but people have kind of been saying like, well, what is, like, if they're deadlocked on the manslaughter charge, does that mean that they're unanimous? Like, everybody agrees that he's guilty of the negligent homicide, but they can't agree on manslaughter. Or maybe it's just, maybe they just haven't even gotten, like, technically you might not be supposed to get to the negligent homicide charge until you dispose of the manslaughter. So it could be like the same. They could come back next week and be like, oh, also we're deadlocked on negligent homicide. It would be weird if it was just like a straight acquittal at this point, like that would be a weird setup, because like there's somebody who thinks he's guilty of manslaughter. Presumably that person also thinks he's guilty of negligent homicide, but that could end up a mistrial. I don't know. That's these cases, they get like a huge amount of attention in this case because it was video or whatnot, and because they kind of symbolize larger trends in the same way that like Rittenhouse or George Floyd or Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin or whatnot. There's always a case like this that's going on. I will say, like, it's a tragic situation, but I do feel for the Penny guy, because it did seem like he was trying to be a good,
trying to be a good Samaritan.
Yeah,
trying to be a good Samaritan.
Step in and help in a way, and now, like, he could go to prison, right? And of course, like, Jordan Neely died. That's bad. He's clearly was like had a bunch of arrest warrants. He's mentally ill. He was not living his best life already. And that's, I think, also indicative of like broader trends in terms of like urban centers and like homelessness, mental illness. I don't know what sort of like drugs were involved in the Neely case, but yeah. So that's just something else that's happening topically right now, and I don't.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on it. Like I don't think Penny should have been brought up for prosecution, but artifact of the time, the what is it, like the DA, or like, is he the DA of New York? Who's the guy, like the guy who replaced Morgenthau?
Alvin Bragg,
New York attorney. Yeah. I mean, he's an ideologue. He's one of the Soros guys, and basically, he wants to let all criminals out except for white people or something. Just be honest. I think that's what's going on here. Like, white guy, black man. Okay, you're gonna get prosecuted. So that's what I feel. So that's why I don't look deep into it. I don't think about it. It's just unfortunate. If it had happened now, I'm not sure as much if Bragg would have quickly brought it, just because I think the era is changing a lot. Right. And he might still want to try to get reelected. London Breed and SF tried to tack to the middle. It didn't work. But she tried to tack to the middle. Like, there's a massive right-wing shift in urban areas because people are sick of this crap. You know? In terms of like the public disorder. You can look at the maps, the swings in New York City and SF, even in SF, especially among BIPOC,
right,
as they would say 2 years ago, because like they're sick of this crap. Everyone's sick of this crap. Who's on the subway? Not like I don't like when I go to New York, I don't take the subway. I take Uber, because I can afford it. Because I don't want to deal with that crap. I mean, I have a couple of times, but only if I'm like in the Upper East Side. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just in the U.S. I don't know if you saw a few days ago, the Labour in the UK, the Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he gave a speech and he was like, "There's been too much immigration, and this is the Tory party was running a open borders experiment. That's like Brexit was all about delivering open borders or whatever." Watching it, I had to kind of double check. It's like, is this a deep fake? Is this AI? Because it seemed very strange. But he's made like a number of statements like that. It's basically like, no, what are you talking about? Labor, we're for immigration restriction. It's the conservatives that are open borders people.
This stuff is crazy. Okay. I guess we should talk about the crazy, like the Romania stuff, right?
Sure. Yes, let's do that.
Why don't you explain it? Because like you read an article about it. That's more than like
I read news article.
I talked to and I just literally got off the phone with a Romanian, Titus Teixeira, and he gave me his take. So you go first, and then I'll tell you what I heard.
I'll tell you what this
informants have told me.
I'll tell you what this article told me. So right now they're having the presidential election in Romania. It's one of those 2-round things where you have a first round and then the top 2 contenders proceed to the second round. So they had the first round, and I believe the winner of the first round was this guy who's so far right, so-called, like friendly towards Russia, anti-NATO. This is what the article said. I don't know how much of this is true, but in any event, after so he won the first round. The second round, I think, was supposed to be this weekend. And the Constitutional Court in Romania invalidated the results. I believe what the article said was because there was just a lot of Russian social media influence, like promoting this guy and some other woman too, like maybe on TikTok or whatever. And so they said, oh, well, there were foreign accounts like interfering in the election, so it's done. It's annulled. So that's my understanding of it, and maybe you can tell me what Titus told you about like what the real story is or whatever.
Yeah. Well, so those of you who want to know really what Titus thinks for like 20 minutes, because we did talk about it for 20 minutes on my podcast with him. I mean, I think like like half the people that are subscribed, like in the email list here, are subscribed to unsupervised, but half of them are not. So if you guys don't know about unsupervised learning, you can go check it out. That podcast I'll probably post within the next month, so it'll be a while. And it'll be free and ungated at some point on Spotify and Apple. But so I don't know what your level of interest is, but if you want to know the real deal, and I was okay with just talking to him about it and then like posting it later because like nobody really cares about Romania, you know. We're not going to really find out. We're not going to have many follow-up stories after this, I think.
Right.
Nobody really cares. So here's what the issue is. So Titus, specifically, they were like talking in the media about like Chinese manipulation of TikTok in Romania. And basically, his hypothesis or his model of what's going on is so Romania is a country in 1989 in December when the communist dictator Ceausescu and his wife were mysteriously murdered executed on live television. And it was a push. It was a coup from within. The Romanian Communist Party reinvented itself as a leftist party in a democratic system, and communist apparatchiks were the first leaders of Romania after the fall of communism. And so there was a lot of conspiracy theorists, and nobody really what Titus said is like the people in Romania do not really have a good sense of what happened internally to the Communist Party for someone to give the thumbs up to basically whisk Ceausescu and his wife away and execute them on live television, because that's what happened, right? And so nobody really knows like what was going on, and so there's a lot of conspiracy theories. Romania, over the last 25 years, well, not 25, it's like arguably 35, but it was stepwise. It's a member of the European Union. It's a member of NATO. Okay, so this is like the big club. A lot of Romanians work in the West, and a lot of stuff is going on in that country. But they kind of trusted their elites. So initially they were like post-communist elites. Sometimes they've had some democratic transitions, but they basically trusted their elites. They trusted the West. They were definitely part of New Europe. In the early 2000s when Don Rumsfeld was talking about old Europe versus New Europe, Romania, like Poland, was super aligned with the West. But what started to happen now is there's enough wealth. One, there's enough wealth in Romania, and two, Romania is a conservative society. So in Eastern Europe, there are certain societies that are not conservative, like Czech Republic, not conservative. Hungary, despite Orban, is actually not that conservative. Hungary is like more culturally conservative than socially conservative is the way I would say it. So, Hungary, like when it comes to like sex and drugs and whatever, Hungary's not that conservative. But when it comes to nationalism, it's pretty conservative. Yeah. And Poland has been conservative for a while, and it's very Catholic, but they're kind of going a little bit through Irelandization, where it looks like they're getting more liberal. Their fertility has crashed. So Romania is not like that. Romania's total fertility has gone from 1.3 to 1.8 in the last 20 years. It's bounced back. Everybody in Romania is religious, at least nominally. They might not be super religious in practice, but Romania is like a country where after communism, they're like, oh, okay, we'll just go back to being what we were. Right. Which is basically like Eastern Orthodox country with like Hungarian minority, whatever. And so Romania is like a different model, a different template than the other Central European countries. And the people start to understand that democracy basically meant that they get to have their opinions out there. And they're like, oh. And so this guy comes out of the blue.
Yeah.
And the far right wins the parliamentary election. He won the first round, probably will win the second round. It's always a runoff system. He comes out of the blue. Titus Teixeira's take is basically, look, the Romanians are a religious, parochial, mildly racist, because they have a Roma minority, conspiracy theory oriented population.
Right.
This guy is who they would want to elect.
Right.
He is like the better, because like he has a PhD in agronomy. He's pretty well off. He has a deep interest in classical Athens. Yeah. He is like the Romanian version of the Uber Romanian.
When you say a deep interest in classical Athens, is that like a euphemism for something, or it's just like he just really likes reading the classical scholars?
No, I think he is kind of like intellectually oriented, although he also like has issues with like the Holocaust, so he's also a revisionist of some sort.
Right.
So but what Titus said is like one thing. You talk to a lot of Central Europeans, they don't give a shit about the Holocaust because they were also genocided at some point, and so it's like they don't have the same attitude. Because in America, we were causing the genocide of the Native Americans, if you want to call it a genocide,
Right.
Whereas like if you're I don't know, like if you're Serbian, for example, the Ustasha did like a number on you. The mortality rate in Serbia is really high. So just to give an example, I don't know what happened in Romania. I think they had the Arrow Cross, so they had a pretty pretty anti-Semitic. Like they weren't the different European pro-Nazi regimes had different levels of anti-Semitism, and I believe the Hungarian one was way more anti-Semitic than
Yes.
the Hungarian one, for example.
I believe I could be wrong, but I read a couple books on fascism, and my recollection of the Iron Cross is they actually rejected the Nazi race science because they thought it was too Jewish, right? So they're like, we're very anti-Semitic. We don't like the Jews, but like all this scientific classification type stuff, we're not into that because we think that also comes from the Jews. So, yeah, that's where they were on that, I believe.
Yeah. So it's a little weird. Basically, what I asked him, I was like, "Is this kind of like Hindu nationalism in India, where in India you had basically so the Congress Party actually grows out of Fabian socialism. So it grows out of the Labor Party. So
they
the
were
Congress
all in
India's
England. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all hanging out together. They were all part of the same kind of movement. So, these leaders in the Indian subcontinent, the people at the top, like Nehru and his lineage, but even like some of the people around him, they were all basically culturally more aligned with British labor people than they were the people of their own country. What happened with the rise of Hindu nationalism and Modi is people of the country themselves elected someone much more like them. And so Modi is a religious Hindu. He's not a cultural Hindu. Because Nehru was a cultural Hindu, but he was agnostic in his beliefs, So what Titus is saying, a lot of these Romanian elites, they were maybe culturally Romanian, but they were not really like legitimately like of the people because they thought of themselves as pan-European and they really just wanted to assimilate with the European overclass. And so what you're seeing here is local regional nationalism kind of erupting, partly because there are some issues with the European model, which I don't know if we want to get into, but I mean, Europe, 25 years ago when the EU started, was actually kind of competitive with the United States in terms of GDP. It was higher GDP, the aggregate. I still think it might be a little bit, but GDP, PPP even. And now, for example, Germany was restructuring its labor force and did really well in the early phase of, basically, Trimerica was Trimerica Germany or whatever, for a while. But now Germany is not quite the sixth man of Europe, but it's kind of getting like, if you look at the numbers, it's like Italy's growing much faster than Germany. Yeah, Germany is just like messed up because it can't compete with China now. China has basically moved into a lot of the German territory when it comes to, I think precision machining and other things like that of medium-sized industry. So European model is not looking as, Romania's had massive brain drain. Like all of the people in Romania, like Titus is in Hungary right now. He was in Romania until 4 years ago, and like he realized one day that like, look, I just got to eat.
Right.
So he moved to Hungary. He still didn't move that far away. He didn't go to Paris. He didn't go to London. But there's a lot of people that did, and so like the country has been like hollowed out. And then also like the cultural values of the Western Europe and America are just not the values of Romanians who, they have like a very racist relationship with the Roma minority. They're gypsies, but on the one hand, they can actually like jive and kind of like relate to the gypsies because they themselves are not like these like rationalized, post-national Western people. Like they're still, proud of their Romanian identity, Eastern Orthodox religion, they're Balkan people, and basically, what did you think democracy meant? vibes essays. This is democracy. Democracy is when you have like a conspiracy theory oriented, extremely reactionary populace will elect one of their own. And the way I told Titus is like, Donald Trump is a poor man's idea of a rich man. You know, well, this is an average Romanian's idea of a successful person, which is not the idea in Paris or Madrid or Rome or Berlin, right? Of like kind of like Homo Europas of the cosmopolitan man. So that's what I heard. That's what I was told. I can't like evaluate it myself, although it does make sense. Nations, when they go through certain types of development, when the middle class gets big enough, what you actually see is kind of like an upwelling from the bottom of certain counter-modern norms, right? Like when you have limited suffrage, like with the national liberals in Germany in the late 19th century, or in England in the 19th century, or in the United States before the 1830s, you do have like kind of upper crust liberalism, kind of an airy political discourse between left and right. And then when populism comes in with suffrage, with the participation of the masses, people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like even in the 1830s, look at what the newspapers wrote about Jackson, right?
Right.
This is what happens when you have populism.
Yeah. And I mean, this is sort of happening everywhere, even in Germany, I would say, with Alternative for Deutschland or whatnot. I mean, a problem that liberals have is they, like on a fundamental level, believe that liberalism and democracy are the same thing. So when a democratic system delivers a result that they don't like, they say that it's not democratic somehow, and so they do things like invalidate the election because, whatever. And so that's like a repeating phenomenon. I think that's going to continue to happen. Another thing that I think is happening, and it sounds like maybe there's a little bit of this, but I don't think that the West, especially like the United States or Western Europe or whatever, we're not making the most. I think we're like needlessly alienating other people through pushing our own cultural values on them in different ways. In addition to Romania, right now there's all sorts of protests that are going on in Georgia, right? There's a disputed election there. And I saw someone posted a little video of an exchange between like a protester and a soldier in Georgia, where the protester says to the soldier, well, you want to sell us out to Russia? And the soldier says, well, the alternative is being sold out to, and he said a word in Georgian that was translated as like a slur for gay people, right. So like that, I think is like another thing is like, he asked, well, what is it? What does the like West stand for? It stands for like LGBTQ plus, which in Sweden, I'm sure that works great.
Gay, international gay,
yeah, globo homo or whatever. And, I'm sure that works. Like if you're that works great in Sweden, maybe it works okay in Thailand, but does it work in Romania? No. Does it work in Africa? Probably not. Does it work in the Middle East, or South Asia? I don't think so. So yeah, I think I think America is needlessly, I mean, it's surprising to me, and maybe it's not true. Like, I have to view with like some of this stuff with skepticism when people say, oh, this such and such candidate is like pro-Russia, because maybe that's just a lie. But let's take it at face value. Like, why? Like, how badly do you, as the liberal international order, how badly do you have to screw up that Georgians are like favor pro-Russian candidates, or Romanians are favoring pro-Russian candidates, or Hungarians, where like Soviet troops like literally occupied the country for half a century? You have to screw up really badly for them to be like, actually, you know what? We think Russia is maybe better than you guys, right? So to me, I think that would call for some soul searching and a redirect, even more so than like domestically Trump winning the popular vote or whatever.
Well, I mean, I kind of what makes me think about the validity of or the utility of Prime Directive in Star Trek, which a, a lot of the times the episodes that mention the Prime Directive, and like they violate it all the time, whatever. But a lot of times they mention like the tension was like you're like, but you want to intervene, but the lesson often was like you don't understand the indirect consequences of intervening.
Right.
Like societies have their own path. They have their own, there was kind of, it was an old school like liberalism of Gene Roddenberry in the 1950s, 1960s that, left to their own devices, they will eventually converge on post-material secular humanism, right?
Yeah.
But societies go through phases, and the whole idea is, you leave them alone, which was not always easy. Edmund Burke, who he was a Whig, but he's kind of right coded now. He defended Indian practices, I think, including sati, from utilitarians and liberals and Christians. And like the main issue is just like he's like, you got to let other cultures just do their thing and not interfere because like you don't know what the consequences of interference are going to be. That's not always true. Like don't always like. I think like banning sati. Yeah, but banning sati is like basically the wives would jump in their husbands' pyres, and that was very common in Bengal at the time. It's not actually common across the subcontinent, but in any case, the East India Company was running Bengal. That's why it was a big deal at the time. But overall, yeah, like social engineering is difficult. It's doable. I mean, like the Hebrew language was resurrected from extinction after 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's doable, but that took a lot of doing, and so I think that's what people don't understand. With the European Union, I think they had an idea. Part of the issue is like they want to compete with the United States as a common market. That's fine, but like they don't speak the same language. They don't have the same values. Labor mobility is not the same. Like we have a superpower. We have a massive market where everyone speaks English, or most people do, and the values are roughly the same. There's some variation, but really. The European Union can't compete with us because there are multiple nations.
And we have a common monetary system, a common fiscal federal system, a common defense system. The EU, for all its like weird in some ways it's very intrusive in terms of like national sovereignty for the member states, but in other ways they're still kind of stuck in the Articles of a Confederation equivalent system,
Yeah, that's fair. European. Yeah, because like because not everybody in the EU has I think Sweden still has their own currency, right?
Correct. Yes. Great.
Yeah, like not everyone.
I think there's Sweden has specifically opted out. There are some others that.
Oh, so here it is. This is what Wikipedia says. Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Sweden. So of the Western ones, really of the kind of like developed ones, Sweden and Denmark are really the big holdouts. Yeah. Obviously, England was, UK was, but yeah, right. UK left. So that was, but still, it's a little weird that Sweden and Denmark. Although with Denmark's like now with the GLPs, with like Ozempic and stuff like that, Denmark's like wants its own little currency. They want the Norwegian way. So yeah, I mean, this is just basically Romanians being Romanian, and Titus's take is like the court decision is partly because the court is a European Union, kind of like institution. The people there are more European than they are Romanian, and so that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this disjunction.
Right.
But in terms of populism, and just kind of a disjunction between the people on top and the vast masses and what's going on, and like populism, and how it might be like a little uncomfortable for everybody. I think like this is where like paywall discussion. We'll talk about South Park conservatism, and also just like, I mean, we were talking about it in a chat group, but basically what I said is like, in a way, like MAGA, the Trump majority, is like, keep your hands off my porn, keep your hands off my big gulp, keep your hands off my sports betting, just like be left alone. You know what I'm saying? Hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. To listen to the rest of it, please go to conversation.substack.com.
Two minds met on a summer's eve, each with truths they long believed. Words flowed like a winding stream as hours passed in deep debate. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. In listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. They spoke of justice, spoke of change, of history's weight and future's range. Their views at first seemed worlds apart, but patience bridged the divide. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. They spoke of justice, spoke of change, of history's weight and future's range. Their views at first seemed worlds apart, but patience bridged the divide. It's not about who's wrong or right, but understanding others' right. In civil discourse we can find the ties that gently bind. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. As dawn broke soft on dewy grass, they smiled and shook hands at last. Two souls enriched by reason talk, united in respect. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. This folk song captures the essence of a long, thoughtful discussion between two public intellectuals. It emphasizes the power of patient listening, mutual respect, and the discovery of common ground. The gentle tone reflects the common understanding they reach after their debate. Would you like me to expand on any aspects of the lyrics?